The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. 12 mighty species sat in their crystal towers on Prime, deciding the fate of countless worlds. They were ancient, wise, and powerful. They had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a cosmic shore. The controlled trade with their massive merchant fleets. The dominated warfare with their battle-hardened warriors. The Etherians managed diplomacy with their telepathic abilities. Each species had carved out their place in the galactic order through centuries of careful positioning and proven strength. Then came the day when everything changed. Ambassador Ravda was reviewing trade reports when her communication panel lit up with urgent signals. A new fleet had emerged from the Outer Rim territories. The ships were unlike anything in their databases. Sleek, silver vessels that moved with purpose through the void. Unknown vessels, this is Galactic Council Station Omega-7. Identify yourselves immediately, came the standard challenge from the Border Patrol. The response that came back sent shockwaves through the command center. This is Admiral Sarah of the Human. We come in peace, seeking dialogue with your governing body. Humans, a species the Council had never heard of. Within hours, the news reached every corner of Council space. Emergency sessions were called. Military advisors huddled in war rooms. Diplomats scrambled to gather intelligence on these newcomers. The human fleet consisted of 50 ships, each one roughly the size of a Council destroyer. They maintained perfect formation as they approached the designated meeting point near the neutral zone. Their technology seemed advanced, but not threateningly so. Standard energy readings, conventional propulsion systems, nothing that appeared beyond Council capabilities. This assessment proved to be the first of many mistakes. Captain of the Defense Force commanded the response fleet sent to escort the humans to Prime. His ships surrounded the human vessels in what he considered a show of overwhelming force. 300 heavily armed warships against 50 unknown craft. Human Admiral, broadcast on open channels, you will follow our designated course to the Council chambers. Any deviation will be considered an act of aggression. Admiral's voice came back calm and steady. Understood, Captain. We appreciate the escort. The journey to Prime took 3 days. During that time, Council intelligence teams worked around the clock to analyze every piece of data they could gather about these humans. The results were puzzling. The humans appeared to be a relatively young species, perhaps only a few hundred years into their technological development. Their ships showed signs of recent construction. Their crew appeared to be entirely biological, with no evidence of the genetic modifications or cybernetic enhancements common among advanced species. Most curious of all, scans indicated that human ships were equipped with something the Council had never encountered. There were energy signatures buried deep within each vessel that their sensors couldn't identify. When questioned about it, Admiral simply smiled and said it was standard equipment. The Galactic Council convened in full session for the first time in 50 years. Representatives from all 12 species filled the Great Chamber, their various forms creating a spectacular display of galactic diversity. The floated in their atmospheric suits, the stood in their powered armor. The Etherians glowed with soft telepathic energy. Admiral entered with a small delegation of humans. She was a woman of average height with graying hair and steady eyes. Her uniform was simple, functional, bearing few decorations. She carried herself with quiet confidence as she approached the speaking platform. High Counselor, eldest of the Etherian representatives, spoke first. His words resonated directly in the minds of all present. Unknown humans, you stand before the Galactic Council. We have governed these stars since before your species learned to make fire. State your purpose in our domain. Admiral stepped forward, showing no sign of intimidation. Honored Council members, humanity greets you with respect and friendship. We seek to establish peaceful relations and request consideration for membership in your alliance. A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Several Council members exchanged knowing looks. Trade Minister N of the spoke next. Young species, you misunderstand the nature of Council membership. It is not simply requested. It is earned through demonstrated capability, proven worth, and centuries of observation. What capabilities do you bring? Demanded General of the... What technologies, what resources, what military might? Admiral remained calm. We bring diversity of thought, innovative solutions, and a strong desire for peaceful cooperation. As for our capabilities, perhaps a demonstration would be more useful than words. This suggestion caused considerable debate among the council members. The idea of allowing an unknown species to demonstrate anything within council space was highly irregular. However, curiosity eventually won over caution. "Very well," announced High Counselor. "You may conduct a limited demonstration using one of your vessels in the designated testing area. Our observers will evaluate your technology." What happened next would be discussed in council chambers for generations to come. Admiral selected her flagship for the demonstration. The vessel, named Endeavor, separated from the human fleet and moved to the testing area. Council observers positioned themselves at a safe distance, their sensors recording everything. "What would you like us to demonstrate?" Admiral asked. General stepped forward. "Show us your weapons. Fire upon the target asteroids we've positioned." The Endeavor moved into position. Council members leaned forward in their seats, eager to see what kind of armament these humans possessed. Advanced plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravitational disruptors. What they saw instead left them speechless. The human ship fired what appeared to be simple kinetic projectiles. Metal slugs accelerated to incredible velocities. The asteroids didn't just break apart, they ceased to exist. The projectiles punched through them as if they were made of smoke, continuing on to obliterate everything in their path. "Impressive," admitted General, though he tried to hide his surprise. "Crude, but effective for a developing species." Admiral smiled. "That was our basic defensive system. Would you like to see something more advanced?" Before anyone could respond, the Endeavor began to change. The hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, reshaping itself into an entirely different configuration. Weapon ports emerged from hidden compartments. Energy signatures spiked across all council sensors. "What is this?" demanded Trade Minister N. "Adaptive technology," replied Admiral simply. "Our ships modify themselves based on mission requirements." The demonstration continued with displays that everything the Council thought they knew about technology. Human ships could become invisible to sensors. They could project energy barriers that deflected any known weapon. They could manipulate space-time itself to achieve faster-than-light travel without using the established hyperspace lanes. But the most shocking revelation came when Admiral was asked about humanity's military strength. "How many ships does your species possess?" inquired High Counselor. Admiral paused for a moment as if checking something. "Currently in service, approximately 12 million vessels." The chamber fell silent. Even the usually unflappable Etherians showed signs of surprise. 12 million, repeated Trade Minister N. "That's impossible. No species could construct and maintain such a fleet." "We've been busy," Admiral replied with what humans called understatement. The truth was even more staggering than the Council could imagine. Humanity had indeed been busy, but not in the way any galactic civilization had ever approached expansion. While other species conquered worlds through military might or economic pressure, humans had done something unprecedented. They had united. Not just their own species, but every form of life they encountered. On every world humans visited, they didn't see subjects to rule or resources to exploit. They saw potential friends, allies, and family members. The 50 ships that had appeared at Council borders represented not just humanity, but a coalition of over 300 species from the Outer Rim territories. Species that the Council had dismissed as primitive or irrelevant had joined together under human leadership to form something entirely new. An alliance based not on dominance, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. As Admiral concluded her presentation, she made an offer that would change the galaxy forever. The human extends an invitation to all Council members. Join us not as rulers or subjects, but as equals in a new kind of civilization. One where every voice matters, where every species contributes their unique gifts, and where the strength of many creates something greater than the sum of its parts. The Council chamber erupted in debate. Some members saw opportunity, others saw threat. All of them realized that their 3,000-year reign as the undisputed masters of the galaxy had just come to an end. Outside the chamber windows, the human fleet waited patiently among the stars. 50 ships that represented a revolution in how galactic civilizations could function. A quiet announcement that the old ways of conquest and dominion were about to be replaced by something the galaxy had never seen before. Cooperation on a cosmic scale. Admiral stood calmly as arguments raged around her. She had delivered humanity's message. Now it was up to the galaxy to decide what came next. The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of the Galactic Alliance was about to begin. But first, the Council would need to learn a hard truth about humans. They didn't just make friends with other species. They made family, and family would do anything to protect each other. The demonstration of human technology had been impressive. The revelation of their fleet size had been shocking, but the real surprise was still to come. As the emergency session continued late into the night, long-range sensors detected something that made every Council member's blood run cold. More ships were coming, thousands of them, all heading toward Prime. The human reinforcements had arrived. The emergency alarms throughout Prime shattered the pre-dawn quiet. Council members who had finally retired after 18 hours of heated debate were jolted awake by the piercing wail of the planetary defense systems. General burst into the command center, still fastening his armor. "Report." The sensor operator's voice shook as he delivered the impossible news. "Sir, we're detecting massive fleet movements on the outer edge of our system. Initial count shows over 15,000 vessels approaching at maximum speed." 15,000? General felt his warrior's heart skip a beat. The entire Council Defense Force numbered barely 8,000 ships, and those were scattered across dozens of systems. Admiral, who had been provided quarters in the diplomatic wing, appeared at the command center within minutes. She moved with the casual pace of someone who had expected this development. "Admiral," General confronted her directly, "are those your ships?" Admiral checked a small device on her wrist. "Some of them, yes. I believe the current count is 18,437 vessels. They brought more ships than expected." The Trade Minister N had arrived, her atmospheric suit cycling rapidly as her stress levels spiked. "You have allies from another galaxy." "We have friends everywhere, Minister." Admiral's tone remained conversational, as if discussing the weather rather than the largest military force anyone had ever seen. When word spread that humanity was making first contact with the Galactic Council, many species wanted to witness this historic moment. High Counselor materialized in the command center, his ethereal form crackling with telepathic energy. "This is a clear act of aggression. You bring an invasion force to our capital system." Admiral's expression hardened slightly. "Counselor, with respect, if we intended aggression, this conversation would not be taking place. Your system's defenses would already be neutralized, your planet secured, and your leaders in protective custody." The casual way she stated this sent chills through every council member present. "You dare threaten us?" General stepped closer, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. "I'm not threatening anyone, General. I'm simply stating a tactical reality." Admiral gestured toward the main display showing the approaching fleet. "If humanity and our allies intended conquest, it would already be complete. We're here for dialogue." The truth of her words was undeniable. The human fleet had approached openly, requested permission to meet, and followed all diplomatic protocols. Even now, with overwhelming force at their disposal, they maintained peaceful formations and responded to all communications. But the sheer scale of their presence was terrifying. Within hours, detailed reports began flooding in from Council intelligence. The approaching fleet consisted of ships from over 200 different species. Some were recognizable from the Outer Rim territories. Others came from regions of space the Council had never explored. Most disturbing of all were the vessels that didn't match any known technology. Ships that seemed to bend space around themselves. Massive constructions that conventional engineering. Living vessels that appeared to be grown rather than built. "How is this possible?" demanded Trade Minister N during an emergency council session. "How does a young species like humanity command such loyalty from so many different civilizations?" Admiral, now accompanied by a diverse group of alien representatives, stood before the council once again. This time, the power dynamic had shifted dramatically. "Perhaps they could answer that question themselves," Admiral suggested, gesturing to her companions. The first to speak was a being the council recognized as a supposedly a primitive species from the outer rim known for their mining operations. But the creature that stood before them was clearly no primitive miner. "I am commander of the Deep Fleet," the being announced in perfect galactic standard. "Our people have worked the asteroid fields for centuries, ignored by the great powers, treated as little more than equipment suppliers. Then the humans came." Paused, his crystalline features reflecting the chamber's lights. "They didn't come to exploit our mining expertise or claim our territory. They came with an offer we had never heard before. Partnership. True partnership, where our knowledge and their technology combined to create something greater than either could achieve alone." The next speaker was even more shocking. A representative of a species the Council had classified as extinct after there was consumed by a stellar collapse 200 years earlier. "The humans found us," she said simply. "Our generation ships wandering the void, slowly dying as our technology failed. The Council had written us off. The humans spent 3 years restoring our vessels, relocating our people, giving us new worlds to call home. They asked for nothing in return except our friendship." One by one, the representatives shared their stories. Species that had been uplifted from primitive states through human guidance. Civilizations on the brink of collapse that had been saved by human intervention. Ancient races that had shared their wisdom with humans in exchange for protection from aggressive neighbors. Each tale painted the same picture. Humanity didn't conquer or dominate. They liberated, assisted, and united. "This is impossible," muttered General. "No species could maintain such extensive operations across so much space." Admiral smiled. "General, you're thinking like a traditional galactic power. Humans don't maintain control through force or fear. We maintain relationships through trust and mutual benefit." To demonstrate her point, Admiral activated a holographic display that showed the current status of human space. The Council members gasped at what they saw. Human territory didn't exist in the traditional sense. Instead, there was a vast network of allied systems, each maintaining their own government and culture while participating in a larger cooperative framework. "We call it the Galactic Cooperative," Admiral explained. "Every member species retains full autonomy over their internal affairs. They contribute what they can to collective projects and receive assistance when needed. No one rules, everyone participates." The concept was so alien to traditional galactic politics that several council members struggled to understand it. "But who makes the final decisions?" asked High Counselor. "Who commands the fleets? Who settles disputes?" "Decisions are made collectively, based on expertise and consensus. Fleets are commanded by whoever is most qualified for the specific mission, regardless of species. Disputes are mediated by neutral parties chosen by the involved groups." Trade Minister N shook her head. "That system could never work on a galactic scale. It's too complex, too chaotic." "It's working right now," Admiral replied. "The 18,000 ships outside your system represent voluntary cooperation from over 200 different civilizations. No one was forced to come. No one was threatened or coerced. They're here because they believe in what we're building together." As if to emphasize the point, the communication system activated with an incoming message. The voice that emerged was clearly non-human, speaking in rapid harmonics that the translation system struggled to process. "Admiral," the voice finally resolved, "the Symphonic Collective has completed their analysis of Council space. We detect 17 different species showing signs of technological stagnation. Should we offer assistance?" "Not yet, friend," Admiral replied. "We're still in the getting to know each other phase." The casual nature of the exchange sent another shock through the Council. The humans had allies conducting intelligence-gathering operations throughout Council space, and they weren't even trying to hide it. But the greatest shock was yet to come. "I have a question," announced Security Chief of the speaking for the first time during the proceedings. "Your demonstration yesterday showed impressive technology, but we need to know the full extent of your capabilities. What happens when your cooperative faces a real threat?" Admiral considered the question carefully. "Chief, are you asking for a combat demonstration?" "I am." The chamber fell silent. Combat demonstrations between galactic powers were serious affairs, often leading to actual conflicts. But given the circumstances, it seemed like the only way to establish clear understanding of relative capabilities. "Very well," Admiral agreed. But I should warn you, our combat capabilities are quite different from what you might expect. The demonstration was arranged for the following day in an uninhabited system 3 light-years from Prime. The Council assembled their finest ships, led by General personally commanding the flagship Devastator, a massive dreadnought that had never been defeated in battle. 25 Council vessels took positions against a single human ship, the destroyer Resilience. The odds seemed laughably unfair, but Admiral had insisted that one ship would be sufficient. Human vessel, General broadcast, prepare for combat simulation. We will use minimal power settings to avoid actual destruction. Understood, General, came the reply from Captain Torres of the Resilience. Beginning defensive maneuvers. What happened next redefined every council member's understanding of space combat. The human ship simply vanished. Not invisible to sensors, not hidden behind some kind of stealth field. It ceased to exist in detectable reality. The Council fleet spread out, scanning desperately for any sign of their opponent. Advanced sensors swept empty space. Gravitational detectors found nothing. Even exotic particle scanners showed no trace. Then the attacks began. The first Council ship simply stopped working. All systems shut down simultaneously, leaving the vessel drifting helplessly. The crew reported that their computers had been taken over by some kind of adaptive virus that rewrote itself faster than their countermeasures could respond. The second ship experienced what could only be described as technological regression. Advanced systems began failing one by one, replaced by older, simpler versions of themselves. Within minutes, a state-of-the-art warship had been reduced to the technological equivalent of a museum piece. The third ship faced a different fate. It remained fully functional, but its crew reported that all their weapons had been transformed into gardening equipment. Plasma cannons now dispensed fertilizer. Torpedo tubes launched seed pods. General watched in growing alarm as his fleet was systematically neutralized without suffering any apparent damage. How is this possible? His answer came when the Resilience suddenly reappeared directly above his flagship. But it was no longer alone. The single destroyer had somehow become 5 destroyers, all identical, all apparently real according to every sensor system. General, Captain Torres' voice came over the communication system, your flagship's main reactor is currently running on what we call safety mode. We've temporarily replaced your antimatter fuel with a harmless plasma substitute. You'll experience no loss of life support or basic functions, but your weapons are completely offline. General checked his instruments and felt his warrior pride crumble. Everything the human captain said was true. Somehow, they had infiltrated his ship's most secure systems and made fundamental changes without anyone noticing. How was all he could manage to ask. We don't fight the same way you do, General, Captain Torres explained. We don't try to destroy our opponents, we try to make fighting impossible. The demonstration concluded with all Council ships restored to full functionality. But the message was clear. Human technology didn't just surpass Council capabilities, it operated on completely different principles. As the fleets returned to Prime, General found himself in the unusual position of having learned something important about warfare. For the first time in his military career, he had encountered an opponent that could have destroyed his forces completely, but chose not to. The humans didn't fight to win, they fought to end fighting. Back at Prime, the Council convened in emergency session once again. The demonstrations had answered their questions about human capabilities, but raised even more disturbing concerns about their own position in the galaxy. They could have conquered our entire territory years ago, admitted Trade Minister N. Why didn't they? Admiral, present for the discussions, answered simply, because conquest was never our goal. We're interested in cooperation, not domination. High Counselor leaned forward, his telepathic energy probing carefully at Admiral's thoughts. What he found there made him recoil in surprise. You're telling the truth, he said wonderingly. All of it. Your species really has no interest in ruling the galaxy. Ruling is exhausting, Admiral replied with a smile. Building is much more rewarding. The Council faced a decision unlike any in their 3,000-year history. They could attempt to maintain their traditional power structure and risk irrelevance as the galaxy moved toward a new model of cooperation. or they could adapt to a reality where their ancient dominance no longer mattered. The choice would define the future of galactic civilization. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy was transforming in ways no one had predicted. The Galactic Council still existed, but its role had fundamentally changed. Instead of ruling from their crystal towers, council members found themselves participating in something unprecedented, a genuine democracy that spanned the stars. Admiral stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, watching ships from 300 different species work together to build humanity's gift to the galaxy. The massive space station would serve as a neutral meeting ground where any species could send representatives to participate in galactic governance. "It's magnificent," said High Counselor, joining her at the viewport. The ancient Etherian had become one of humanity's strongest supporters after experiencing firsthand what genuine cooperation could accomplish. "It's just the beginning," Admiral replied, watching as a construction crew worked alongside former enemies to install defensive systems that would never be used for conquest. "Wait until you see what we're planning for the Outer Rim territories." The transformation hadn't been easy. Many council species struggled to adapt to systems where their traditional advantages no longer guaranteed dominance. They had been particularly resistant to economic models based on abundance rather than scarcity. But the results spoke for themselves. Trade Minister N approached the viewing area, her atmospheric suit displaying data streams that would have been impossible under the old system. "Admiral, the latest productivity reports are remarkable. We're seeing efficiency increases of over 400% in sectors that have fully adopted cooperative protocols." The secret Admiral had learned wasn't just advanced technology. It was the simple concept that every species had something valuable to contribute. The dismissed by the Council as primitive miners turned out to possess an intuitive understanding of three-dimensional space that made them natural engineers for megastructures. The supposedly extinct had developed philosophical frameworks for conflict resolution that were revolutionizing diplomacy. Even more impressive were the discoveries being made as species shared knowledge freely instead of hoarding it for competitive advantage. "Admiral," came a voice from the station's communication system, "we have an urgent message from the Deep Exploration Fleet." "Put it through," Admiral replied. Captain Sarah's face appeared on the holographic display, her expression mixing excitement with concern. "Admiral, we've made contact with something significant. The Andromeda Gateway Project has detected signals from beyond our galaxy cluster." This news sent a ripple of tension through the assembled representatives. First contact with extragalactic civilizations was a theoretical possibility everyone hoped to avoid. "What kind of signals?" asked General, who had joined the group. The warrior had become an enthusiastic supporter of human military doctrine after learning that true strength came from making enemies into allies. "Communication attempts," Captain reported. "Multiple sources, all using similar transmission protocols. It appears we're not the only galaxy developing cooperative civilizations." Admiral smiled. "Patch me through to the Gateway Project. It sounds like humanity is about to make some new friends." The next few hours brought revelations that dwarfed even the discovery of the Galactic Council. The signals from beyond their galaxy weren't from one civilization, but from dozens. An entire network of cooperative galactic alliances, each following principles remarkably similar to what humanity had developed. "This is impossible," breathed Trade Minister N. "Are you saying that multiple galaxies have independently developed cooperative governance?" "Not independently," Admiral replied as more data came through. "These civilizations have been in contact with each other for thousands of years. We're actually late to the party." The implications were staggering. Humanity and their allies weren't unique. They were part of a larger pattern that seemed to emerge naturally when civilizations reached sufficient maturity. But the most remarkable discovery was yet to come. "Admiral," Captain continued, "the lead civilization from Andromeda wants to speak with you personally. They say they've been waiting a long time for our galaxy to develop a proper cooperative structure." "Waiting for us?" General looked confused. "How could they know we existed?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Doctor, humanity's chief, had been studying samples provided by their new allies. Her research had uncovered patterns that suggested something profound about the nature of intelligence itself. Every species we've encountered shares certain fundamental characteristics, Doctor explained during the emergency briefing. Not just biological similarities, but cognitive ones. We all seem to follow similar developmental paths, facing similar challenges, making similar choices. High Counselor, his telepathic abilities allowing him to grasp concepts quickly, suddenly understood. You're suggesting that intelligence itself follows predictable patterns. More than that, Doctor continued. We're suggesting that cooperation is an inevitable result of true intelligence. Species that don't learn to work together don't survive long enough to reach the stars. The communication from Andromeda confirmed this theory in spectacular fashion. "Greetings, young galaxy," came the transmission from beings who called themselves the Cosmic Gardeners. "We have watched your development with great interest. Your rapid transition from competitive to cooperative governance indicates that your species are ready for the next phase of galactic evolution." Admiral found herself in the unprecedented position of representing not just humanity, but their entire galaxy, in contact with a civilization that spanned multiple galaxies. "We're honored by your attention," Admiral replied, "though I'm curious what you mean by the next phase of galactic evolution." The response that came back changed everything once again. "The universe is vast, but it is not empty," the Cosmic Gardeners explained. "There are forces in the deep darkness between galaxies that threaten all life, forces that can only be opposed by civilizations that have learned to work together across all boundaries." The revelation that their galaxy was part of a larger cosmic struggle added urgency to the transformation already. Species that had been reluctant to join the cooperative suddenly found compelling reasons to participate. The who had maintained isolationist policies for centuries opened their borders and shared their advanced defensive technologies. The Thermic Collective, known for their aggressive expansion, redirected their energies toward building rather than conquering. Most remarkably, former enemies began working together on projects that benefited everyone. "It's extraordinary," observed Trade Minister N during one of their regular progress meetings. 6 months ago, they and the Union were preparing for war over mining rights in the neutral zone. Now they're jointly constructing the largest stellar engineering project in galactic history. The project she referred to was humanity's most ambitious undertaking yet: the construction of a galactic defense grid that would protect their entire galaxy from external threats. It required cooperation on a scale previously thought impossible, with hundreds of species contributing resources, expertise, and labor. But the real measure of their success wasn't in the massive construction projects or the advanced technologies being developed. It was in the smaller changes happening throughout the galaxy. Admiral received regular reports from human ambassadors stationed throughout cooperative space. The stories they told painted a picture of transformation that went far beyond politics or economics. On Prime, children from dozen different species attended integrated schools where diversity was celebrated rather than tolerated. Former slave species were becoming leaders in fields that had previously been forbidden to them. Ancient cultural barriers were dissolving as beings discovered they had more in common than anyone had imagined. "The most remarkable thing," reported Ambassador Martinez from the Outer Rim territories, "is how quickly former prejudices are disappearing. When you're working together to build something greater than yourselves, old hatreds become irrelevant." The Galactic Council, once a symbol of rigid hierarchy and ancient privilege, had become something unprecedented: a truly representative government where every voice mattered. "I never thought I would see the day," High Counselor admitted during one of their planning sessions. 3,000 years of council rule, and we accomplished less than humanity has managed in 6 months. "You accomplished something important," Admiral replied. "You maintained stability long enough for this moment to be possible. Every civilization has its role to play." The truth was becoming clear to everyone involved. Humanity's real gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their ability to see potential where others saw only problems. They looked at primitive species and saw future partners. They looked at dying civilizations and saw opportunities for renewal. They looked at ancient enemies and saw the possibility of friendship. This perspective was proving infectious. Throughout cooperative space, beings were learning to approach challenges with human optimism and determination. The results were miraculous. Scientific breakthroughs that had eluded researchers for centuries were achieved through cross-species collaboration. Planets that had been written off as uninhabitable were transformed into garden worlds through combined expertise. Conflicts that had raged for generations were resolved through innovative diplomatic approaches. But perhaps the most significant change was in how beings thought about themselves and their place in the universe. "I used to believe that strength came from dominance," General confided to Admiral during the dedication ceremony for Harmony Station. "Now I understand that true strength comes from lifting others up." The ceremony itself was a perfect example of what the galaxy had become. Representatives from over 400 species attended, each contributing something unique to the celebration. The symphonic collective provided music that touched emotions across all biological types. The Artisan Guild created decorations that incorporated aesthetic principles from dozens of cultures. Most moving of all were the testimonials from species that had been transformed by their participation in the cooperative. "Our people were dying," spoke Ambassador H of the Wanderer Fleet. "Our ships were failing, our culture fatting. The humans didn't just save us. They gave us hope for a future we had thought impossible." "We were isolated, afraid of contact with other species," added Representative Nuh of the Crystalline Confederacy. "Now we have friends among the stars, and our children dream of exploring rather than hiding." As the ceremony concluded with the activation of Harmony Station's main systems, Admiral reflected on how far they had all come. The galaxy that had once been divided by fear and competition was becoming united by hope and cooperation. But the greatest test was yet to come. The cosmic gardeners had been clear about the threats lurking in the darkness between galaxies. Ancient forces that had destroyed countless civilizations were turning their attention toward their galaxy cluster. "Are we ready?" asked High Counselor, sensing Admiral's thoughts. Admiral looked out at the vast construction projects spreading across the system, at ships from hundreds of species working together, at beings who had once been enemies now planning for a common future. "We're getting there," she replied, "and when the darkness comes, it's going to discover something it has never encountered before." "What's that?" "A galaxy that refuses to fight alone." The Galactic Cooperative was no longer just an alliance of convenience. It had become something that transcended politics or military necessity. It had become a family, bound together by shared purpose and mutual respect. And families, as humans had always known, were capable of extraordinary things when they worked together. The age of isolation was ending. The age of cooperation had begun. And whatever challenges the universe might bring, the galaxy would face them united, with humanity's greatest gift leading the way. The gift of seeing enemies as potential friends, differences as sources of strength, and the impossible as merely another challenge to overcome together. The human had emerged not as conquerors, but as gardeners, helping an entire galaxy grow into something greater than anyone had dreamed possible. And in the vast darkness between the stars, ancient threats were about to discover that this galaxy had become something they were not prepared to face, a civilization that had learned the true meaning of unity.